Pasha Majdi. Good morning, Pasha. How you doing?
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Well, Majdi. I think we got it straight.
That's right.
Majdi, right?
And you're Mario or Mario?
Can be either one.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, people do whatever they want with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Happy New Year to you.
To you as well, sir. Pretty big bump coming in basically in midterm in the county commission, and then getting reelected, and then being installed as the president. Tell me about how all of that took place.
Well,
by the way, I think it's well deserved.
Oh, that's very kind. Thanks. Yeah, well, we just looked at it as, I've been on the commission for a little bit. Commissioner Stolper had been doing it for a while. He didn't want to do it anymore. In fact, the funny thing is he didn't want to do it last year either. I kind of had to strong arm and twist his arm a little bit and say, just do it one more year. He didn't want to do it anymore, and I had been on for a little bit. Everybody else was new, so it was kind of by default.
That's true. There's been a pretty big turnover on the Jefferson County Commission.
There has. We have 3 new commissioners, 3.5 if you include me.
Because you were there partial term.
Right. So I've been on for about a year, a little over a year. And it just kind of fell in my lap this time around.
And then Michael Mood is the vice president.
That's right. Yeah, and he'll be terrific.
Yeah, Mike's an impressive guy. He of course, with experience in firefighting and emergency services and such, and it seems like just a stand-up kind of guy.
Not only that, but he owns multiple businesses. He's a small business owner. And when you look at Jack Heffestay, Mike Mood, Steve Stolper, Kara Keys, and me, we all bring the same perspective. We're conservatives. I was raised by a small business owner. We have multiple small business owners on the commission, and we're small government conservatives.
Yeah. And Matt, I know that you also provide legal counsel to the Jefferson County Commission, so obviously there are some limitations on your participation in this, but you're smart enough to know not to cross any boundaries here.
I hope so, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how is the basics here? How is the job of the president of the commission different than being a member of the commission?
I try to make it as similar as possible. And the way I do that is the primary difference is you have to set the agenda with the county administrator. But the way I make it as similar as possible is I consult with the entire commission as we set the agenda. I don't just give them a heads up. Hey, this is what we're doing. Get in line. That's not how I'm going to do things. I'm going to talk to everybody. What's on your mind? What do we need to get done? How do we work this together? How do we do it in an orderly fashion? So the primary difference is your responsibility is to set the agenda, and you do that with the county administrator. But I want to do it as a group, and I think we're all like-minded with similar goals, so I think we can get that done.
Has there been any movement in terms of the next step in regards to this water bottling plant in Middleway?
Not that I'm aware of. There's actually, I think I brought this up last time we were chatting about it, but it's kind of interesting. People don't know this. At the county commission level, there's no application that we're looking at. So for me, I'm reading about it in the newspaper. I'm hearing about what's happening on the planning commission. I don't sit on the planning commission, and I'm just kind of observing. I don't really have an opinion.
Let's look ahead toward solar, the next hot button issue of the conversation here in Jefferson County, Pasha. And tell me, what's on your plate about it right now in regards to making any changes with zoning for it, if anything is on right now?
We have what's called a solar text amendment. That's part of our ordinances. And the Planning Commission is taking a look at that, seeing if there's any improvements that can be made based on the first few projects that came through. And that's a result of a motion that I led last year. Was it last year? It's been a while now. So that's something the Planning Commission is looking at. They're going to bring recommendations to us at the County Commission, and then we can vote it up or vote it down or say we need changes X, Y, and Z. But I can tell you that was a priority for me. I heard that on the campaign trail, actually from all the candidates, but certainly all the candidates who won. We need to make some changes here. And there's a whole list of changes that can be made. I would start with setback requirements and screening. I don't think you need solar panels right up on your face as you're driving down Cabletown Road. I heard a lot of feedback on that. Frankly, I didn't need to hear any feedback on that. That was my own feedback when I was driving down Cabletown. That seems to be a little bit too much, and you can address that with screening. There is some screening now. It will take some, and when I say screening, I'm talking about vegetation, bushes, trees, etc. But that'll take a while to grow, and we won't see how effective that is for a few years. Still, a little bit more of a setback so you don't build all the way up to the line. And then there's other questions like how does this affect neighboring properties, the environment, etc. I'm not really an expert on that, but some folks on the Planning Commission could have some good ideas there.
Are there additional proposed solar fields in front of the commission right now?
No, there were, I think, 5 that were approved through the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that's the end of it as far as I know.
That's the last one you're aware of?
Right.
All right, very
Right.
good. What do you see as the big challenges in 2025, aside of the solar situation for the Jefferson County Commission?
The big challenge is we have growth of a type that's not great for the county financially. It's a lot of residential. There's nothing wrong with people moving into the county. I moved into the county. I moved in from just an hour away.
Everybody at one point or another moved in.
Everybody at one point. Exactly. Everybody moved in at some point. But with more and more residential growth, because of the way our taxes work, residential growth does not balance out financially. We need commercial growth to balance it out. When you look at Jefferson County, it's very different from Berkeley County in this regard. Jefferson County, of the top 10 employers in Jefferson County, 9 out of 10 are either nonprofits or government. That's a wonderful thing. We love having the government here. We love having nonprofits here. That's a great, great thing. But they don't pay taxes, right? So we need to balance out our commercial growth so that instead of having 9 out of 10 be nonprofits or government that don't pay taxes, we have a few more that are commercial. And I would hope over the long term, 10, 15 years, I'd like to see 10 out of 10. That's not, well, 10, 15 years might be ambitious if you're getting a 10 out of 10. But we need to balance that out. Let's get one major employer that's not a nonprofit so we can balance out our property taxes, which pays for services at the county level.
Is there a way to pump the brakes on this, though? I was just at a social event last night seeing with a real estate guy who was talking about first of all, the rush to move to the Eastern Panhandle from neighboring states, and Maryland just raised their property tax by 20%. So
Jeez.
We're going to see a lot more of that. Is there a practical way to pump the brakes on residential development until we get the business development to support the tax base?
Well, what you hear at a lot of meetings from activists is just vote no. Well, it doesn't work that way. You can't deny people their property rights. But what you can do, and maybe pump the brakes isn't the right word, perhaps turn the steering wheel a little bit. Send people in a different direction by giving them options that
Not
are
Berkeley.
The landowners who are selling their land because they don't want to operate a farm anymore, the next generation doesn't want to do it, or the grandkids don't want to do it, well, let's give them some options. So if you're looking at a bequeath your land to the next generation, it doesn't always go to maximum density residential. What are some other options there? And that's why recruiting commercial into the county is such a good idea. I want to promote the tourism industry. It's not the answer to every question, but it's a part of it. If you look at what Wayne Clark did as a delegate last session at the state level, taking down burdensome regulations that prevented wineries and breweries from opening up and making that easier. Are there other things that the county can do? We need to work with JCDA, Jefferson County Development Authority, to recruit businesses into Jefferson County and tell farmers and landowners, hey, you don't necessarily have to go to company X, Y, or Z that's doing these 500 house mega developments. That shouldn't be the default. The trick is, though, you can't just vote no. It doesn't work that way. They have the right to develop their property. The trick is you got to provide them other options, whether it's commercial or perhaps different types of residential.
Well, isn't that a two-part process, though? If I have a plot of land that I want to sell and Matt Harvey Development Corporation wants to buy it from me, I can make that sale. That does not necessarily mean that he gets to have his 500 house development, right? That's two. So as a property owner who doesn't want to be in the farming business anymore, I have sold the property. I'm done. But that doesn't mean you can't control the development that goes onto the sold property.
Yeah, before you answer that, I have a piggyback on top of that, which is the purpose of zoning is to set apart certain sections of the county for certain things. And if something is zoned agricultural, just because I want to sell it to a developer, why does that automatically then get flipped to residential? If it's agricultural, it should be agricultural. How does that process of changing it to residential so a developer can build 1,000 houses on it take place?
Well, it's tricky. You have a legal right to the best use of your land.
Sure.
So with zoning, zoning is really about how are you going to affect your neighbors. And what we try to do is make sure you don't put a major industrial facility right next to residential. And the way you can accomplish that is through setbacks is one example I gave, but there's a lot of different aspects of ordinances that you can put in place. I think ordinances are much more interesting as a tool for curbing development or slowing it down, providing people options for developing on their land that are different from just a housing mega complex.
I was going to ask a question. So,
Yeah.
so a lot of the new building that we see in Jefferson County is and I don't know. This is an honest question. Is that old permits that are being reopened, or is it also in the city limits of either Charlestown or Ranson?
It's mostly one of those two categories. It's either something that's been approved a long time ago, but the vast majority of the growth is actually happening within municipalities, and it's the county's planning and zoning and engineering department that does a check-the-box issuance of a permit, but it's not a discretionary decision that happens at the county. So it happens within Jefferson County, but these
But the municipalities control that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I want to go. I didn't understand your answer well enough, so I'm going to go back to it again and help me understand it better, Pasha. If something is zoned agricultural, does that also include high-density residential?
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
And-
so I'm going back to I own a farm, I own 1,000 acres, I sell it, it's agriculturally zoned. How does that then become high-density residential
well,
so that you can develop it?
Yeah, you have to go through a whole set of processes that starts with our planning commission, and they're governed by our ordinances. And the long-term future land use map is a guide for where you can build. Also, we have a comprehensive plan that we're looking at, and we're going to have a vote on that in the next, I think it's next week actually. We're acting on feedback that we've gotten from our constituents. What I've heard is let's try and tamp down at the speed and scale at which this is happening, and that's something I'm concerned about. Can you provide other options for landowners such that it doesn't have to be a mega complex? Can you do a little bit higher density on one side of the plot of land, but allow for open green space on the other side of the plot of land? And I was approached by some folks at a town hall we had last month in December. Folks who said, we did this near Shepherdstown, and this is a great way to have development such that you don't increase the strain on public utilities as much, and you keep your open green space. Yet we've got triplexes and quadplexes over here on this side of the plot of land, but the rest of it's open green space, and it works just fine for us. The property values are high. This is a nice place to live, and that's something that I think we should look at as a county commission. Ask our planning commission. Let's come up with some ordinances that work better and provide different types of housing options. I'm open to that.
Matt, maybe you know this, Pasha, can the planning commission say, no, you can sell to the developer all you want, but that's zoned agricultural, therefore you can't build 1,000 houses on that land. It's zoned agricultural. Can they say, no, you can't build there because it's agricultural?
I don't know.
Usually not. It depends.
Then what's the purpose of having zoning?
It's about how you affect your neighbors and having this next to that and that next to this.
Yeah, but people
But if I can change it, because
people invest into this. The reason you buy here, if you well, it happened to you,
Happened
I
to me.
believe. Yeah, you
100%
buy in.
happened to me.
This is zoned to be forever woods, and then at a meeting, it then became.
Then it became
housing.
no more woods, right? It became 160 homes, and that's
We have the
question I
farmland
have.
preservation,
You have that if you put your
and that has a longer lasting impact
it does.
than zoning. I mean, zoning can't be inflexible. This is not a lawyer comment. This is just
It can't
citizen
be.
comment.
It can't be inflexible, but it also can't be worthless.
absolutely. But as the population grows and more people want to move to an area, then they have to go somewhere.
Zoning is like a coach being signed to an extension. It's a worthless piece of paper because as soon as that coach wants out for another job, the contract becomes worthless and the person leaves. This is what zoning is to me now. It's become a worthless bunch of lines on a map that don't mean anything because somebody wants to change it.
I think Jefferson County is one of 2 counties that has countywide zoning.
Yeah.
One of my concerns out of it, just kind of trying to catch up on how things work here, having come from Northern Virginia. Take the water bottling plant, for example. The Planning Commission is going to do what it's going to do. It's going to happen. But the roads that lead to it through Middleway, they're going to be sentenced to, I don't know, dozens of 18-wheelers if you hear the projections. And it doesn't seem that there's any string somebody can pull to say, well, before you install your bottling plant or whatever they put in there, you have to build bigger roads and, by the way, install traffic light at this intersection. And in Northern Virginia, you could be forced to put a proffer 3 miles away from what you're doing in order to build your whatever it is you want to build. That mechanism doesn't seem to exist here. Am I right?
You're right. I think it's a problem. There's 2 areas that affect people's daily lives that are run by the state. One is roads and the other is water, and both of them are at play with the water bottling site. It's kind of like
and it's also housing, right? I mean, the roads and water are both big players in where you're going to put houses and how many houses you can put there.
Oh yeah, I see your point. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So we have to work with the Department of Environmental Quality. We have to work with the state legislature. I think I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder here, but I've had some really good conversations with local delegates who are very interested in this issue, and I think you'll hear some news.
Pasha Majdi is our guest here. He is Jefferson County Commission President. How is your relationship with the Berkeley County Commission at this time? Eddie Gokenauer is the new president there, Steve Catlett, the new vice president.
It's pretty good. We had a joint session in which they talked about their legislative priorities for Charleston. We have our own legislative priorities. I like to put those forward as a commission and say, this gets back to your issue, John. Roads. We have a major problem in Jefferson County with the long-term growth of building roads, and because it's governed by the state, when you're in a growth county, you're just constantly playing catch-up, and that's a big problem. So, Department of Highways, if we could get some more focus and attention on our new governor's home district, that would be a great thing.
Hey, that's a good sign, right?
I think it's going to be terrific. I'm going down on Monday to celebrate his inauguration. I think it's going to be a fantastic thing for Jefferson County. Here's a governor who wants to see growth and wants to see development and jobs across the state. Let's help balance out our growth and bring more commercial growth to Jefferson County by following on to the governor's agenda. That's what I want to do.
You can't get further away from the capital than Jefferson County. You can't.
and especially where Governor-elect Morrissey's house is. I mean, it's probably the furthest house.
You can't get further away.
East. We're further east than Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, isn't that something? Right.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So, Pasha, financially, the county right now, I know when you became a commissioner replacement, there were some financial concerns in regards to getting the right people in place, finding some money that was unaccounted for. I don't know that I don't think it was nefarious. It was just some bookkeeping issues because the right people were no longer in place. Are you finished with all that now?
Now we're on to the next phase. So we had a problem with the books last year.
Mm-hmm.
We did not have a chief financial officer. Now we do. So now we need to turn the page and not focus on, hey, can we keep track of our money? That's the basics. That's taken care of. Now we have to apply conservative budgeting. And that means look at all of our revenue that's coming in this year. What was it last year? What is it this year? What is it projected to be the following year? How do we plan ahead? So if that revenue is going down, how are you going to account for that? If the revenue is going up over time, how are we going to account for that? So if you look at Parks and Rec, they receive money from hotel and lodging.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that revenue increased or decreased over time, and how are you planning ahead? Last year, we were just trying to get the bills paid. Now we need to apply conservative budgeting so that we're planning ahead. And a big part of that is at the meta level, bringing in more commercial development so we have a bigger pie to slice up. But that's a major project I want to implement this year, so that we're not only just paying the bills on time, but we're also forecasting what our budget will look like in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and how do we plan ahead for that. Because we have a new CFO, we can do that now.
Bill Ridenauer was one of your opponents when you ran for the House of Delegates. He ultimately won the seat, and Bill was given an assistant majority whip position in Roger Hanshaw's new leadership year here. What's your relationship like with Bill? And as you look back on that election, was it kind of a blessing that you lost so that you're in the position you are in today, more closely to the Jefferson County populace?
It's so funny. When I was running for delegate, I entered the race thinking I was going to run against John Doyle, who's a neighbor, someone I respect, a good person, but he's a Democrat and he's a very different view than I do on what should happen at the state level. So I was excited to run against John Doyle. Before the filing deadline, two people I didn't know entered the race, Bill Ridenauer, Steve Harris. I'd like to say we're friends now. If they were in the race already, maybe I wouldn't have entered at all. Mm-hmm. Bill and I think very similarly on a lot of issues. When it comes to our values, I don't see a lot of space between us. Now, he has a very different job as a delegate, so how that manifests is different. I'm looking at the local level. He's looking statewide. So I think it's terrific that he's in the delegate seat. I'm here to support him. If there's anything Jefferson County can do to help the state, please, Delegate Ridenauer, we'll work together. We've also got Governor Morrissey. It's a pretty good lineup from the Eastern Panhandle down in Charleston now. We get along great. I really respect his views, and we have similar values. I'm happy to be home in Jefferson County, though. It worked out pretty nicely for me.
Pays better, too. The House of Delegates seat is not a good paying job.
Better drive, right?
Much better drive. Hilltop House, final 2 minutes here. What's the latest there and what's next?
Gosh, I don't know. It's so weird. I don't know what's going on. At the government level, we've done everything we can do. It's really up for the private sector now. It's just down the street for me, so I'm really hoping they get this thing started. Mm-hmm. I work from home pretty often, so I don't know how that construction is going to affect my life, but that's not how I look at it as a commissioner. It's a terrific thing for the county.
And they have everything in place. They just need to get started on their own now. There's nothing else hindering the next step for them?
Everything from the government. But when you're in the private sector, sometimes there's much bigger questions like banks.
That's a whole other story,
right,
there.
Yeah, from our end, everything's.
But they had so many red tape obstacles for so many years. It's good to know most of that appears to be out of the way now.
A lot of that's out of the way. Some of it was not red tape. Some of it was really good questions that were being asked. I think everybody on both sides of the issue did a terrific job. I'm glad it was resolved.
It shouldn't take 20 years to resolve it, though. I think we'd agree on that.
That's probably right.
Pasha, thanks for stopping in, man. Always good to see you.
My pleasure.